Welcome to Superhero Pow. I'm your host nerd, Tom Friendly. And welcome to another Raiders of the Long Box, where we check out comic books from years gone by. This time we'll check out Nova, the will he or won't he be in a Marvel Cinematic Movie hero. Though like a lot of heroes these days, Marvel has been trying to replace the original Nova, Rich Rider, with a new one. No, not that one. That's Frankie Ray. She's the Human Torch's girlfriend who renamed herself Nova when she became a Herald of Galactus. Talk about a soap opera. But no, much like how DC has been trying to do with the Blue Beetle, Marvel has been trying to replace Nova. You see, comic book readers hate buying new characters, and publishers want to increase the diversity of their superheroes, so they can sell comics to more people. So it's just easier to replace the older characters. Unfortunately, these new characters never seem to be as popular as the ones they're replacing. C'est la vie. But the original run of Nova started back in 1976 and ran for 25 issues until 1979. He was the creation of Marv Wolfman and Len Wein back before they became working professionals for a superhero fanzine. What's a fanzine? Well, the easiest way to explain it is to say it's a fan's blog before the internet, in print form. A crude fan-created magazine, fanzine. Then 15 years or so later, Marv Wolfman is now the big-shot writer of Daredevil and the Tomb of Dracula. So he pitches Nova, and Marvel accepts. John Romita Sr. takes Len Wein's awesome character design and spruces it up a bit, and boom! He's here, the ultimate superhero, the man called Nova. Although, just like Spider-Man, he's a teenager. Before jumping into the issues, I'll give a quick overview of the character. Nova was cut from the same cloth as Spider-Man as well, a high school loser with matching initials. PP for Spidey and RR for Nova. Wolfman changed up the Spidey comparison, though, by making Rich not very smart and giving him a steady girlfriend. Plus, his high school bully had brains as well as brawn. But in both cases, the fickle finger of fate zapped Peter and Rich, turning them into superheroes. To this, Nova's origin is borrowed from Green Lantern, as a dying alien gives him superpowers, making him the human rocket Nova. Nova's supporting cast is quite deep. He has a very smart younger brother named Robert, two good friends, the sarcastic Bernie and the slow-witted Caps, his high school principal father, his emergency dispatch mother, and his she-could-totally-do-better girlfriend, Ginger. Then there's his very tightly wound bully, Mike Burley, and his spacey girlfriend, Donna Lee. One other thing I'll say about Nova's first series is how packed it is. Marv Wolfman, who of course would go on to great fame with the New Teen Titans, really tried to tell a big overreaching story with Nova. There are plenty of standalone issues and two-parters, which were common for the time. But like Jim Starlin with Thanos, Marv Wolfman was really trying to build up some mythology with Nova. Clearly not as successful as Starlin, but still it makes Nova's original run a little more interesting than your typical reads at the time. All right, now let's get into the issues. Issue number 1 features artwork by the legendary John Buscema. Marvel really wanted to make these first issues stand out, and they do. Check out these great wham-bam pages. The story, of course, is an origin issue, introducing the every-kid loser Rich and his world. Then the dying alien Centaurian Nova Prime, Roman Day, enters Earth's orbit. With his dying breath, he shoots out an invisible mind blast to give his powers and uniform to an Earth being. And there's no screening process here, just boom. Superpowers to whoever happens to be standing in the way. On the funny side, Marv Wolfman plays with this in What If number 15, as 4 other people get the Centaurian Nova Prime powers. Now, Roman is dying because the villainous Zor, there's an original name for you, destroyed his world and fatally wounded him. Zor is now moving on to Earth and so Roman is trying to get there before him. Now I'm going to fill in some of the blanks that aren't covered in the story. I'd hazard a guess that Marv didn't have it all figured out at this point anyway. But Roman Day's planet is Xandar, with an X. Xandar developed superhuman technology, and their defense force is made up of Centurions with various levels of superpowers, the most powerful being the commander, the Nova Prime, Roman Day. I'll also point out that all the Centurions are Xandarians. In the 1990s, somebody thought it would be cool to riff on Green Lantern even more by recreating the Nova Corps as an interspecies peacekeeping force. But originally it was just the planet Xandar's defense force, Semper Fi, or something like that. Getting back to the first issue, Rich obviously gets the Nova powers and becomes a superhero. Because that's just what you do when you get superpowers? This is what I think is one of the weakest bits of Wolfman's story. Rich has no motivation at all. Now I suppose that could have been the point. Rich is just so damn average that he's just going through life with no rhyme or reason. Superpowers or no superpowers. But either way, Rich is zooming around his Nova and boom, Zor shows up. And as you might expect, Rich is no match for Zor. But somehow, some way, we could really use a good explanation here, Marv. Roman Day's dying took out Zor as well. What else do you want for 30 cents? Issue number 2 starts laying the groundwork for the main story of Nova, with the introduction of 2 villains, Condor and Powerhouse. Keeping up the goodwill of Nova's debut, this issue is also drawn by John Buscema and inked by Joe Sinnott. Now the wannabe Falcon, wannabe criminal mastermind, Condor, is on the hunt for more power. To this end, he discovers Powerhouse, a guy who can absorb any kind of energy and then release it in destructive blasts. It seems that Powerhouse killed a boat full of people, and Condor is protecting him from the law. Moreover, he's blackmailing Powerhouse to be a supervillain like he is. And to gain even more power, Condor, with Powerhouse, decides to capture Nova. But when that doesn't work out, he decides to steal some arcane secrets from an Egyptian mummy at a museum. But Nova shows up and things go sideways as Powerhouse is captured. It's here we learn that Condor is trying to acquire as much power as he can because he's getting ready for a battle with him. Who's him, you say? Well, you're going to have to wait 4 more issues, all right? Issue number 3 introduces one of Nova's most famous villains, Diamond Head. Yep, he's the guy with the big diamond head. Diamond Head is just a thug who likes to hurt people. And get this, he was turned into a supervillain because he was hit by a diamond-powered laser. How did DC Comics miss that origin? This issue also brings in the regular art team of Sal Buscema, the younger brother of John, and the inker Tom Palmer. As you can see, these two really try to kick up the depth and detail on every page. I think most of the credit should go to Palmer. As for the storyline, along with the typical Marvel soap opera, it seems that even Diamond Head knows of the dreaded one. That's the him Condor mentioned last issue. So Diamond Head breaks in and out of prison to get something from the captured Powerhouse. Of course, he then bumps heads with Nova. It's Nova's comic. But just like last time, our rookie hero doesn't do so hot against Diamond Head, and he escapes. But the Condor discovers Diamond Head and recruits him for his master plan. Issue number 4 features Nova's first guest star, the Mighty Thor, plus another new villain, the Corruptor. Check it out. 4 issues in, 4 new villains. And they don't write them like that anymore. Anyway, a chemical lab has a fire, and the Mighty Thor comes to help out. But a worker trapped in the lab is transformed into a rage monster, calling himself the Corruptor. with the added power of turning people around him into rage monsters as well, although they remain normal looking. As you might expect, the Corruptor corrupts Thor, and he goes off with a head full of steam. Nova spots Thor, and while trying just to introduce himself to the Asgardian, they quickly get into a full-on brawl, and Nova does pretty well for himself against Thor. Then when the corruption power wears off, you guessed it, Nova and Thor team up to take down the Corruptor. It's all pretty textbook in this issue, even the Corruptor showing up in a costume for no explained reason. Issue number 5 is another standalone issue with the evil Mole Man Tyrannus. He's the good-looking Mole Man, who attacks the surface world with a giant robot. Now, this is before the influence of Japanese giant robots, so Tyrannus's Earthshaker is kind of tin can looking. Now, while Nova is duking it out with the Earthshaker, the fun subplot of the issue is Marv Wolfman and Sal Buscema, yeah, they're in the comic, want to turn this new superhero into a new Marvel comic book. This was a pretty popular gag back then. Look, Mom, I'm in the comic book I wrote. Anyway, as Nova defeats Tyrannus and his Earthshaker, Stan Lee is just not impressed with Nova. So, no Marvel comic book for you. Que sera, sera. Issue number 6 gets back into the main story for Nova and sports a pretty awesome cover by Dave Cockrum, too. Just look at that. Anyway, this issue introduces the big bad for Nova, the Sphinx, the character Condor and Diamond Head were concerned about. This Thanos-like villain is keeping tabs on the Condor and the others because, like them, he too is gearing up for a war to shake the heavens. And even though he says it'll happen very soon, it actually takes Marv Wolfman a couple of years to get to it. Anyway, again, the Condor and Diamond Head help Powerhouse escape the authorities. Nova tries to stop them, but gets captured. Using his advanced computers, Condor studies Nova and learns of his alien superpower origin, and that Roman Day's starship is still floating in orbit. So the villains make plans to raid the starship, hoping to find weapons and other technology that will help them defeat the Sphinx. But as Nova tries to escape, he's defeated again. Then the Condor tries to brainwash Nova into being a villain as well, which works a little too well as Nova now wants to be the boss of the gang and more fighting ensues. And well, that's where I'm gonna leave it for today. Next time I'll cover issues 7 through 12, which will feature the first big showdown with the Sphinx and another superhero crossover. As it kicks off though, Nova is just a so typical comic book from the 70s. The writers were all looking to move storytelling forward with more realism and grander and deeper adventures. But for some reason, it's all kind of clunky. But as Marv Wolfman's own The New Teen Titans, the writing would improve greatly in the 1980s. As for the artwork, again, it's just so 70s Marvel. The whole bullpen were just masters of the wham-bam look. And while not as famous as his older brother John, who literally wrote the book How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, Sale does a great job with these pages. And did you know, each of these comic books is only 17 pages long. I've always been taken by Nova's look. It's hard to find a better superhero outfit if you ask me. And the way his legs disappear when he flies, so cool. It's a shame that they don't do it anymore. Now before I go, we must check out some of these ads. There's like 16 pages of them. First, there's the Evel Knievel toys that everyone had to have back then. Then an ad for the $6 Million Man toys. Tons of Marvel merchandise. The 7 feet tall monster ad. The perennial superhero hostess ads. Marvel subscriptions. And an ad for the famous Bring on the Bad Guys book. Plus, John Buscema art classes and O.J. Simpson shoes? You could get it all back then. I wonder what those shoes are selling for now. Anyway, that wraps up another Raiders of the Long Box. And thanks for spending time with me. Are you like me and you can't wait to see Rich Writer hit the big movie screen? Or do you prefer Sam? Let me know in the comments. And if you could be so kind to like, subscribe, and notify, I won't slap you around like a Sphinx flunky. I mean, that guy's just Assad, right?